When I ask you why you clicked on this video, your answer may vary. Maybe you saw the original and just wanted to dip your toes in the updated version, or maybe you're a newcomer and you couldn't resist clicking that devious thumbnail. Either way, your life is about to change, because in this video, I'm going to go over all 43 of the heroes in Overwatch and rank them S through F based on the overall structure of their ass cheeks. This is the only Overwatch tier list that truly matters. Updated. And since Freyja just released a few weeks ago, I think it'd only be right to start with her. Now you'd think with someone like Freya, a person who literally defies the laws of physics by just openly levitating in midair, that they'd be packing some major goon laps. I mean, if she's gonna act like the main character and proceed to violently molest me within half a second of identifying my character's shadow, then she should at least have the ass of a main character. But instead, I'm left with a glimpse of the most dissatisfying booty cheeks, as my character lies motionless for 15 seconds due to team respawns being complete dog shit. I mean, at least with Widowmaker, when I get server admin, I obtain a boner at the same time. With Freya, I actually just develop a mangina. She so depressingly lacks a lower rack to the point where I become more aroused by that of a Mac truck. So unfortunately for you disgusting souls that play Freya, she's getting a D tier in my dookie cheek tier list. Next up is Ashe, and I must have snorted some major fence a year ago when I gave Mrs. Ashe an A tier, cause back then I didn't really play Ashe. Hell, she was one of my least played heroes. But nowadays in the big 25, Ashe is considered to be my secondary main. Remember how a few seconds ago I called Ashe Mrs. Ashe? I've called her that because I've probably seen Ashe more in the past few months than I've seen my real family, to the point where we're basically married. And before you ask, yes, my mental state is plummeting drastically as we speak. Ashe is the hottest female character in this video game, and even though her ass isn't massive, it's the shape that matters. So she's getting an emphatic S. Stroke me off if you disagree. Next up is Bastion. Now I don't want to bash Bastion too hard because unlike the organic heroes, Bastion isn't physically capable of improving his glute attributes. He's pretty much stuck with the cheeks he was birthed with, and unfortunately his buns straight up look like a meat tenderizer. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my schlong to be turned into ground beef when I'm giving somebody back shots. So I'm unfortunately gonna have to give this cutie an F tier. Next up is my glorious queen, Cool Cassidy. Now I may have said some rather questionable things in the past surrounding Cass's ass cheeks, but I just want to make it abundantly clear when I say I am not gay, and everything I'm about to say is coming from a strictly heterosexual point of view. I would mash pissers with Cassidy. I mean, if you really think about it, having sexual relations with your home dogs only provide benefits in the long term. And Cass has a phenomenal ass. Shit's like glass in his stance. Like, I can't stop looking at it. I'm just joking, by the way, guys. He's mid at best. B tier. Echo is a hero that doesn't strike a single emotion inside of me when I catch a quagmire glance. She looks like if Papa Smurf fucked one of those robots from that Will Smith movie. There's not even an imprint where her crack should be. And then again, at least she has some sort of formidable shape unlike Bastion's ass. So I reckon she deserves my solid D. Speaking of D, did you know Genji has a human cock? Yeah. He somehow has a fully intact meat packer, yet his mediocre buns are forged out of straight titanium. The back shots are gonna sound like this sound effect. There's surprisingly a lot of Genji meat gobblers in the community, but I'm gonna assume they're not praising his derriere more than they're praising his badassery. So I'm gonna stick this little twinkle toots in C tier. But you know who's not going in C tier? The other shit modder brother. Now let's be honest, the only time that Hanzo has any resemblance of a posterior is in fan art, right? But at least his cheeks are made out of human flesh. Like if I was a gay cannibal, I'd want a piece of that ass, cause it's just elegant. In the original video, I'm pretty sure I glazed this man a bit too hard though, due to me maining him at the time. If only Blizzard would listen to the community and nerf Genji instead of his brother, then maybe my happiness would return. There is something you could do to make me happy though. Oh yeah, and Hanzo gets a B tier. But you should become a channel member because it is factually proven that wasting your money on a useless monthly subscription provides health benefits that not even whatever the fuck Stephen Hawking was on could provide. Or I could just start taking a bunch of crypto sponsorships. You know, your call. Next up is the cutie patootie known as Junkrat. I absolutely love this slippery little fella. He has not even a nanometer of ass, but he's still an absolute work of art in terms of handsomeness. In all seriousness, Junkrat is the result of long-term atrophy in only the glute region. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Fox was the offspring of Joe Swanson, because he looks like the most disabled mobile person I've ever seen. Junkrat's ass is so tiny he probably falls into the toilet bowl when he sits down, because his ass isn't fat enough to reach both ends of the toilet seat. So I know I had you in the first half, but I gotta keep you on your tippy toes somehow. Junkrat gets an F for failure. Now in terms of May, I could be Mr. Nice Guy again like I was last time, or I could just keep it a $1.50 with you. May's got a fat ass, but she's also a fat ass. Okay, that was extremely rude. She's not fat, she's just poofier than most. And a lot of people love that. Like a lot of people. If you ever go on any subreddit related to Overwatch, you're bound to catch a couple May glazers spreading their gooner gospel in sheer desperation that maybe one day AI will evolve to the point where a real life May will pop out of their monitors and give them some plus size Gok spin cycle Samsung washing machine edition. Now I'm not a May glazer, but I can definitely see the vision. May's an easy A tier in my eyes. Depending on your taste, I could definitely see her being an S for some. Next up is someone who I deem to be a bit underrated in terms of bollocks. Cause under all of that shiny armor, Pharah's got the fanny pack of a god. Literally. Cause pharaohs are gods. Now I say underrated loosely, because she's not an S or anything. I just think most people would overlook her and throw her in D or C without really thinking about it. I mean, look at the armor covering her badonkadonk. There'd be no reason for all that if she lacked a gat. And the fans seem to think she's triple caked up as well, cause these fan arts are dubious as hell. Pharah gets a B tier for bouncing bazonkas. Now it's time for every E-boy's favorite hero, Reaper. It doesn't matter how well he's able to hide it. I can just sense the goobers from a small country away. It's like Reaper's trying his absolute best to cover his cake in tactical gear. That way I can't praise the patties. He's saving them for Hanzo, cause I guess they're madly gay for each other or some shit, according to the eye cancer I receive when I look up Reaper fan art. But yeah, don't let his deceitful efforts fool you. Reaper's built like a Trojan horse. He's like a nun. You never know what they got until they remove their cloak. That was probably offensive to somebody. Reaper gets an A tier. Soggy Sojourn. Now I could sit here and waste everyone's time by telling you shit you already know, or I could just swiftly place this bitch in S and move on with my day. Every day I pray that Sojourn was uglier. That way she maybe might just lose a small percentage of her players, and I wouldn't have to deal with the zimming muff munchers for one game. But then I realized that the ass is always more important, so as she belongs. It's time to talk about Soldier 76. What is your obsession with this old fart? Every other fan art I see of Soldier depicts him doing some zesty shit with his or someone else's dongle. It's like Soldier only gets new art made of him in June and June only, cause all of his art is gay as hell. Like his ass isn't even that fat. I mean, maybe when he wasn't a walking fossil, the posterior could have been a bit weirier, but I can only imagine that nowadays Soldier's rump has some major wrinkles on it. Shit has the texture of a squished sponge. So I deeply apologize, Soldier mains, but I'm gonna have to give my boy a C tier for cock. Speaking of cock, next up we got Sombra. And I speak about cock because you are a major chicken if you play this woman. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Today, we're here to praise mankind's most elegant feature. And boy oh boy does Sombra have a magnificent piece for this puzzle. I mean, it's not like I'm surprised that the Latina character that spends the entire match sprinting at full speed has developed some ungodly level lower ooga boogas. But just cause it isn't a surprise, doesn't mean it doesn't still catch both of my eyes every time. So to save us all the time, I'm gonna push my praising aside and slide Sombra straight into S tier. I still hate you if you main her though, even if you're kinda cultured. Someone on a very similar spectrum to Sombra is Symmetra. Well, not really, cause Sim actually is on the spectrum. I was damn near about to use Symmetra in this video's thumbnail due to the devious ass pic I found, but ultimately decided against it. Shit was so devious that I can't even show you it on the video, so I probably made the right decision. Symmetra is the greatest looking Indian woman I have ever seen. If she didn't have a cape, I don't know how it would be physically possible to stay focused when she's on the front line. I'd have to learn to play with my feet, cause an ass like that requires the use of two hands, as in one hand on the cross and another on the Bible, baby. Why are the most annoying heroes to play against always the hottest? Symmetra gets an S tier. Torbjorn, a hero who has not even a singular authentic glazer. The only good this man has ever done is produce Brig. I don't know how this fella has so many children. He must have some unmatched levels of riz, cause I know damn well nobody's walking up to him. He looks like my great grandfather's big toe, the blonde hair being the cheese stuck between the nail and the skin, and he's got no ass whatsoever. So I'm just gonna toss him an F tier and continue on my way. Next up is Tarser. Tarser's Tarsus is quite terrific. It's tantalizingly tiny, while at the same time being terribly enticing to the human eye. I just want to poke it for some reason. The desire is entirely too dire for me not to want to admire. Tracer's built like a squire. She's nimble and agile while always somehow looking the opposite of senile. Alright, I'm running out of pockets to rhyme, so I'm just gonna save y'all the time. Tracer gets an A tier, cause although it's not perfect, I still wanna jerk it. Next up is Thy Venture. If you would have asked me a month ago what I thought about Venture, I would have told you that they had no ass. But then this skin came out, and oh goodness gracious, gobble my gooch was I surprised. Where did this come from? Venture's like a more caked up Tracer in this outfit. It's like they saw all the praise that Tracer receives from the porn fans, and they wanted a piece from that cream pie. So then they resorted to copying Tartar's entire flow, which usually I'd be against, as the knockoff is always shittier than the original. But this just simply isn't the case this time around. Venture's packing some major meat packers on the DL, and this may be true for the front too. I guess we'll never really know. Venture, easy A tier. Lastly, for the DPS, we got Shadowmaker. I can't even begin to praise the eloquence level within Widow's preposterous posterior. Tis a bit of a cheat code, as Widow is spider and spider have large abdomen. Did you know that French women canonically use baguettes as dildos because those are the most sanitary form of adult toys in France? Did you also know that instead of soggy biscuit, French people then use that baguette to play a nice friendly round of drenched baguette? Anyways, Widow's ass cheeks are undoubtedly massive, right? But you know what else is massive? My boner right now. So let's give Widow a solid S tier and ignore what I just said. Moving on to the supports, we got Zenyatta. Just like the smooth brain people who played this man, Zenyatta has zero daddy cakes in sight. Unlike how when Widowmaker sits down and creates an eardrum bursting shockwave of sounds, Zenyatta's ass clamp sounds like that of a mosquito. I mean, he does have some strong ass legs to be able to kadoosh my ass across the control point, but he still just floats. His legs aren't exactly what I deem to be active. Overall, Zenyatta, along with pretty much every other Omnic in this game, are a huge disappointment when it comes to ass satisfaction. Like, if I'm looking at an ass, I don't want to be confused as to what part of the body I'm looking at, so I'm plopping this pussy in F tier. Mondre Moira is up next, and I couldn't be less excited to talk about her. Every time I even think about the name Moira, a fresh stench of urine fills my nostrils, and if her base aura reeks of piss, then I can only imagine what her bungus fumes would contain. When looking at certain Moira skins, you can pick up on the fact that she's definitely got at least some dump in her trunk, but similar to Freya, it's just mediocre. Like, it's nothing that I want to stick my mediocre in. God, I'm retarded. I'm gonna put Moira at C tier, because it's a little better than Freya. Next up is every e-girl's favorite hero, Mercy. Mercy's posterior is of quite elegant heritage. It feels wrong admiring a literal angel's assets, as that's a direct confliction with what you're supposed to do with angels. Then again, that ass is fatter than your mom after a $700 order at McDonald's. I am no different than any other man. Man see ass, man happy. Even if it's just ones and zeros on my computer screen. Mercy gets an emphatic S due to her being blessed. Next up is Lucio, and I'm just gonna start this section off by putting his PNG in F tier. His pants are too thick. Like, thick enough to the point where it makes his legs look to be the size of a small planet. Dude could crush Pluto in between his quadriceps. But in terms of booty cheeks, he's got jack diddly squat. Like, not even Diddy would want a piece of that. This ranking could change eventually if we get a skin that shows his cheeks in the flesh, but for now I'm gonna keep him where he is. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt and move him to like a D tier. Next up is Lifeweaver. Guys, is it gay if I put this fella in S? Do me a quick favor and look at this skin. Where did this come from? Why is it so round? Why am I sat in my room talking to myself about a fictional man's ass shape? Why the fuck is Donald Trump so orange? These are all questions that I need answers to right now in the comments. I am seriously questioning my existence right now. My Discord is about to have a field day with this clip. Lifeweaver is getting an S. Swallow my loaf if you disagree. Next up is Kiriko. Now don't let that thumbnail image brainwash you too hard, alright? Cause even though Kiri's hashtag blessed with the bungus, fans really stretch her image in terms of overall size. That shit is not that fat in canon. However, the shape is certainly still there. So I'm gonna bump her down to an A tier this time around. Like I said, I'm a changed man from last year, and I'm just trying to be as honest as possible. Next up is another newcomer. Let's talk about Juno. Now I already have a brief rundown of my thoughts about Juno in the ugliest to hottest video, but she deserves a standalone glaze sesh. I'm not quite sure what Juno consumes for nutrition up in space, but whatever it is, she needs to share it with Tracer, cause Lord have mercy. If she has that thing out bare skin in the sun, it might just blind anyone who crosses its path. The reflections are like a literal death ray of light. If Juno was a man, her name would be Eugene, cause her ass was blessed with the huge gene. The amount of facepalms that y'all just made is crazy. You gotta admit that was a peak dad joke. So I'm happy to announce that my support main is going to be solemnly placed in S tier. Next is the nuclear terrorist Iari. I've said this a few times already, but Iari takes the cake, pun intended, for the most underrated pair of ass cheeks in this shitty ass game. I remember when she first came out, I was seeing a plethora of death photos where Iari's cake was popping out of my screen and I was just baffled. Why is this woman not praised more? I would take Iari over Mercy any day of the week, other than Sunday. I hope some of y'all can agree with me on this one. And just remember, opinions aren't allowed on this channel. You have to agree with everything I say, or else you're just a mouth-breathing Neanderthal to me. Iari's going in S tier, no doubt in my mind. Next up is Torbjorn's offspring, other words known as Burger. We're all thinking the same thing here. redhead. You cannot go wrong with a redhead, unless they're massively overweight, which surprisingly Brig isn't. I'm almost convinced that Torb isn't actually Brig's real father, and that his wife was haggling around with some ginger dude. Cause where is the red hair coming from? His pubes? I asked this cause I know a guy who has ginger pubes, but doesn't have ginger hair. But don't ask me how I know that, cause I'm not interested in sharing. Brig is going in A tier. Next up is Bap Zest. Now it just became Pride Month, so I gotta be careful here. Unlike Soldier, I can actually understand why people would want a piece of Baptiste's piece. Bro's built like a muscular milk dud, and beneath that booty shield, he's equipped with some major bouncing bungus bumps. What the fuck? If I was secretly gay and desperately wanted to have intercourse with a man but didn't want anybody to know because that's generally frowned upon in society, the first man I would fondle with would be Baptiste, because those Kaisers are certain to make you glide, sir. Baptiste gets an S tier. And for the final support hero, we got Anna Banana. Even though she's aged a bit, she's still got the same shape that she used to. And you can't forget that she's the mother of Farah, meaning the genes are the same. The bear's skin may have the texture of a mashed potato, but since the skin is so loose, you could probably reform it like Play-Doh. So to keep it fair, I'm gonna give Anna the same tier as Farah, which is a B. Starting off the tanks, we have Zarya. Not only are her buttocks massive, but she's massive. I don't know what Putin's feeding these women, but I don't even want to begin to imagine what she'd do to me if I gave her a mediocre ranking. I'm gonna throw her in C tier, because the formation isn't great, but the size is definitely present. Time for a little speed run, because the next two heroes are Hammond and Winton. They're both in the same category for me, so everything I'm about to say applies to both of them. There's no cheeks more than there's hair on these gentlemen's rumps. I don't want my dick to cough up a hairball after it already coughed up blood from the viruses that these rodents definitely carry. Plus, who is even attracted to animals? There's no depth to their doonies. It's just a hole, and that's not cool. So I'm slapping both of these hooligans in F tier. Next up is Sigma. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but the only psych ward patient that has ever had any resemblance of an ass is the spirit from Dead by Daylight, or Dexter Morgan. Sigma's got a cute little fire poker of a bungus. I can't help but giggle at it every time I see it in game. He's got armor everywhere else besides his cheeks for some reason. It's goofy. So I'm gonna slide Sigma silkily into C tier. Next up is our Lord and Savior Bubba. The shape's there, the size is there, the hair's there. He's not wearing underwear. He gets S tier. Reinhardt. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but Reinhardt has no flaws. He's the embodiment of alpha male. There's not a muscle on this man's body that hasn't been pushed to its limits. Now the only thing left is my pussy. Reinhardt gets a solid A tier. And finally I can talk about the only good-looking Omnic in this game. Ramatra's design is the thing that single-handedly carries my interest in drawing. Cause how the fuck does someone think of a hero as badass as Ramatra and encapsulate him so perfectly in a body? I don't even want to talk about his ass cheeks, cause they really are mid. But that doesn't matter. He's getting a D tier, but just know that I still find his design to be peak. Next up is Orisa. Next up is Malga. Remember this, lads. Injecting 50 gallons of steroids into your dick vein every day does not make your ass fatter. Any other body part would render Malga an easy S tier, but the ass just isn't cutting it. Unless I were to see him in a maid outfit, then I'm gonna have to give him a D. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, well I'm still giving him a D, but his D tier is different than the others. Next up is the Queen of Junkertown herself. Unlike Malga, JQ's use of steroids actually affect her buttocks, and they look quite spectacular. You know how it's romantic to sit on the tailgate and stargaze with your significant other? Well, instead of admiring the pretty stars in the sky, I need to find a woman who will examine JQ ass pics with me on a nightly basis. Indountable S tier. Next up is the newest tank hero, Hazard. Just like the previous two heroes, Hazard is also a huge drug enthusiast. But instead of ingesting roids and other similar drugs, he devours crystal meth and forcefully throws meth rocks at you. Now even for a crackhead, lobbing 100+ pounds of pure Walter White crystal has got to require a sheer volume of glute strength. And sure enough, when you look under broad, Hazard's got some polished poppers that are usually out of sight. Now trust me, I hate Scottish people just as much as the next guy. But where they were nerfed in terms of accents, they were buffed in terms of asses. So I'm giving him an A tier. Next up is generic buff bald black man number 66. Doomfist has insane mobility, meaning he's got to have the glute formation required for such agility. Doomfist is pretty much just a roided up Baptiste. He kinda looks like Mercer from The Walking Dead. And although his ass is certainly there, I just don't think it compares to Babs. So I'm gonna throw the Fister of Doom a tier below at A tier. And lastly, finally, we got Diva. Whenever I picture an e-girl in my brain, Diva is the first person to come to mind. I don't know how it's possible to eat so terribly terribly and still be left with the greatest build a woman can have, but D.Va manages it. My buddy and I often find ourselves yapping for hours about how otherworldly lonely we are, and how we wish that a D.Va could just spawn into our lives. And to cope with this, since it'll never realistically happen, we just fuck each other. But yeah, D.Va's ass is fantastic, and she is our final recipient of the sought after S tier, and that's the list. If you enjoyed, consider clicking one of the videos on screen, and I thank you for watching. Thank you to all my beautiful channel members for sticking with me through all these months, and I hope you all have a great rest of your nights. I love you, Schnookies, and I'll see y'all later.